Ooh, the dust has settled since 11.24 came out, and even though there weren't that many changes, the impact these changes have had has been big, and there have for sure been some big shifts in champions going from broken to bad and vice versa. So in today's upload, the Jizz will reveal the new and updated tier list for patch 11.24 based on all the data that has come out of the patch in the last 5 or so days. Now tiers are the same as usual. We have the broken tier, S tier, low-key broken, in other words underrated, your standard A to C tiers, and the trash tier this week is called Azir. Sorry to all you pigeons of Shurima. Now for more up-to-date tier list, make sure to leave a like on the video and let's get into it. Now we're going to start with the mid lane tier list, and there have been a couple of changes. So first of all, Qiyana has made her way into the busted tier, and that's because players these days are taking presence of mind in their runes, which solidifies all their mana problems, and starting with a longsword with a refillable potion. This allows them to get a really early serrated Dirk, and her win rate in high relos is around 55% at the moment. Now we still have Kassadin and Anivia in there, all because of the Archangel staff buff, so it's costing 400 less gold, and we also have Kayle with the lethal tempo buff. It's been really nice, and you pretty much get a free scaling lane. Now other champions to note here, Victor has moved out of the busted tier because of the Cosmic Drive nerf, the Crown of the Shattered Queen nerf, and his win rate has dropped a little bit as a result. Now you can also see the Pantheon has made his way into S tier, and that's all because of the Conqueror buff that came in. So the fact is now lasting 5 extra seconds, really nice for your skirmishing and even laning. And we can also see Cassiopeia, who's staying in S tier because of the Archangel staff buff, and other strong picks with Everfrost like Twisted Fate, Lissandra, and if we head down to low-key broken, you can see a lot of picks here. Now first up we have Akali. Because of the Conqueror buff, this has actually seen her win rate go up, especially in higher levels of play, and against short-range champions she can really pop off. Now interestingly, we also have Kog'Maw, Seraphine, Karthus, and then Zillion. Now what do all these champions have in common? Archangel staff, that's right, 2600 gold, so much cheaper now for these scaling mid laners, and these champions are just picked nowhere near enough for how good they are with the cheaper Zeras. We also have Graves, who has been nerfed a little bit recently, but into melee champions just like Akali is a super good pick. And elsewhere on this tier list, we can see that Orianna has moved up into A tier because lots of players at the moment are going the new Archangels, and this has boosted her win rate as well. And in the A tier, we can still see a lot of staple champions. So Ahri, Sylas, Aurelia, Yasuo, Zed, all of these champions can definitely be played, but you may have noticed that one champion, even though she's still banned a lot, has actually dropped a few tiers since 11.24 came out, and this is LeBlanc. Because Cosmic Drive has been nerfed, and because of the introduction of Crown of the Shattered Queen, this AP assassin is really a shade of her former self. Now unfortunately for Ryze, even with the cheaper Archangels, still a very fragile and vulnerable pick in the mid lane. And as for the Azir tier, well of course we have to have Azir in here. Despite lethal tempo getting buffed, it's not even a good keystone for him, so Azir is still really struggling and has been ever since the new items came in, and really since Nash's tooth got changed. Now let's head to the top lane and talk about the busted picks first. Now surprisingly, you can see here that we have Akshan, and this champion, I even called it 2 patches ago, it's such an underrated pick, and to be honest, just straight out broken at the moment. We press the attack, and because you're a ranged champion, top lane just really suits him. Also the fact that you can cover a lot of ground with your heroic swing allows you to gap close to your opponents who are trying to escape, and also escape from ganks yourself. And these are some reasons why Akshan is such a strong pick in the top lane, just like Dr. Mundo, the new Kayle with lethal tempo, and also press the attack Urgot. And just like Akshan, because Urgot's running press the attack, which is a very strong keystone. And for these champions, because lethal tempo, like lots of other top laners, has been nerfed for melee champions, so you're getting 2% less attack speed, these 4 champions have been just chilling. Now the Conqueror buff that came in, so it's lasting an extra second, this does mean that some champions might be a little scarier, but it's not the 6 seconds that it used to be. So for Darius, who's still in A tier, Fiora, Riven, who's in B tier, they're still not that much of a threat. This is why lots of the S tier is made up of tanks. So if we look at Malphite, Shen, Ornn, Tahm Kench, even though some of these champions you might consider going Frostfire Gauntlet, even though the damage from the Snowbind passive isn't scaling off your max HP, it's still a very cheap item, and the slow that still exists is just too OP. And we still have our Divine Sunder abusers, so Camille, Jax, Trundle, Nasus, still in a very good position, and we also have First Strike Jace, and then Quinn as well. Because Conqueror has been buffed, you're going to see more melee champions, and because lethal tempo is still in a good position, Quinn, because she counters pretty much every melee champion in the game, is just loving 11.24. Now in low-key broken, we can see Akali is here again, because of that Conqueror buff, and because in the top lane, you're going to be going against lots of melee champions, who Akali does very well into. Now we also have Cassiopeia, in low-key broken, in the top lane. She's a really good lane bully, just because lots of champions can't actually get onto you. Your W exists, the movement speed from your Q, and also because Archangel staff is cheaper, it's a very underrated pick, and to be honest, not played enough. Now we also have Lilia here with Frozen Heart, because she reduces the attack speed of those lethal tempo abusers, really underrated pick, and we also have Nico and then Vayne. So a few ranged champions here in Vayne, of course, because lethal tempo for ranged champions has been buffed, so the attack speed has gone up 40% per stack. For Vayne, this makes her even scarier. Now across the rest of the board, we can see that Kled, so Skarl's HP is counting as base HP. This has seen Kled drop significantly in the win rate department, even though you might be remounting a bit more than you were before, and even though the cooldown on your E and the damage rate ratio got buffed as well, these are just not enough to compensate for that base HP nerf. And the lethal tempo nerf that came in has affected Gwen, to be honest, more than any other top laner. She at the moment has around a 45% in most elos. And also for that reason, we also see Yone dropping down to B tier, because against lots of these bruisers who go Conqueror, so Darius, Fiora, even Aurelia might go this, these matchups have become harder. But what about the picks in the jungle? Well, remember that Conqueror buff I was going on about? This is Sino Mumu head into the busted tier, and even in higher elos, the green cube has a really good win rate. Surprisingly, normally this guy, because he's so skill shot oriented, you know, players who have their monitors turned on are able to dodge these bandage tosses and see his telegraph plays coming. But the fact he has a 51-52% win rate against some of the best players in the world just go to show how good this Conqueror buff was. And there's no surprise that Trundle, Divine Sunder press the attack, Nunu and Rammus come in here as well, just super consistent, reliable picks. And as for the rest of the tier, we can see that Rek'Sai has gone down to S tier just because these other picks are just a little bit stronger. Still a really good pick though. Now we can also see that Vi has moved up into S tier with Hail of Blades and Divine Sunder. In lower elo, she has close to a 54% win rate, and because her ultimate is just so deadly and it's a point and click, you cannot miss it, it's really effective against people who get a bit too close to you, which is most often the case. Now Viego has also moved up into S tier because of the Conqueror buff, and just the fact that full clearing is tending to be the trend at the moment, Viego, that's what he loves, so he can get to his Sheen Spike pretty much for free and then scale into the mid to late game, which is when he becomes unstoppable. Now Warwick with Divine Sundra, Xin Zhao with Lethal Tempo despite being nerfed, still a very good pick, and then Zac and Dr. Mundo, again just like Nunu and Rammus, super reliable tanks to pick. Now Loki Broken, Nidalee is in here because if you can play Nid, the rewards are endless. I mean, a Master and above at the moment, she has a 54% win rate, and because she's one of the best clearers in a game and honestly doesn't really have a losing matchup, if you're good at Nidalee, you should never really be caught out, and she can be a very oppressive jungler once she gets going. Now next to Nidalee, we can see Nocturne, and this is because of the Axiom Arc item. This working with your ultimate, even though it did get nerfed, so it's now 20% the cooldown reduction. Like, who cares? Your ultimate is such an important ability, and to be honest, it's the only way of you actually getting kills, especially in the mid to late game. So getting more paranoia is off, super good, and a bit like Nidalee. If you can play Qiyana at a high level and you understand how her kit works, she can be a very scary jungler to play against, and honestly, one of the best snowballing champions on the Rift. Now elsewhere in the jungle tier list, we can see that Fiddlesticks has gone down from S to A tier, and this is because if we think about it, with Conqueror getting buffed and Lethal Tempo still being in a strong position for melee champions, the jungle really isn't that free for Fiddle at the moment. Also with Crown of the Shattered Queen being an option, it really does cuck Fiddle's all-in one-shot potential in those team fights. But he's still a very solid pick, as with the other champions in A tier. And if we make our way down to the B and C tiers, we can see that Echo and Evelynn, because Crown of the Shattered Queen is such a big obstacle for you guys, even Elise as well, one-shotting champions it's just become a lot harder. This is why you might see assassins like Rengar, Zed also in these lower tiers, because kills are just harder to come by. Now let's head to the bot lane, guys, and talk about the AD carry tier list, and there's no surprise here with Vayne and then Kog'Maw because of the Lethal Tempo buff. These two late game hyper carries have become insane, especially when you consider the supports that are also strong at the moment. The synergy is unreal, and it's really hard, even if they do have a fairly weak early laning phase, to punish these champions. But maybe some champions who can punish them reside in this S tier. So we have Ashe, Caitlyn, Jinx, who are kind of annoying to play against because of their range. Lethal Tempo has also been a really nice buff, and then if we think of Jhin, who's just a very consistent pick, also does well into champions like Ashe, Caitlyn, and Jinx because they don't have the most mobility, and that goes for Ziggs as well, who has been indirectly buffed because Archangel's staff is 400 gold cheaper, so because you'll be getting to that spike sooner, it's really good. Now in low-key broken, there's only one champion here, and this is Xayah. And you might be like, how on earth is Xayah low-key broken? Well, the reason I put her here is because lots of people at the moment are testing out the new Lethal Tempo, but I'm telling you, Lethality Xayah is still the best version of this champion. With Eclipse and Muramana, Sawilda's Grudge, and then Aerie as your keystone, the damage you deal with a Q-Max and even the poke, it's super annoying to play against, and she still has above a 53% win rate in Challenger. And also the great thing about playing Xayah in lower elos is that lots of people are going to pick close range melee champions. So like Yone, Yasuo, Zed, J4, these champions are really good for Xayah because your ultimate is such an amazing counter. Now elsewhere, we can see that Draven, Ezreal, and Samira are in the A tier because of the Conqueror buff, and we can also see at the end here the Yasuo is in here as well. Even though Lethal Tempo has been nerfed, he's a very annoying champion to play against, as I'm sure we all know. Now another champion we have to mention is Akshan, coming in the B tier, and just like the top lane, because the bot lane is long for you, this allows you to use your heroic swing to great effect. But unfortunately for two champions, Aphelios and Varus, even though Lethal Tempo got buffed for Aphelios, it's still not enough to bring his win rate even close to the other champions on this tier list. And Varus, even though you might go the new Lethal Tempo, which has been buffed, honestly you just hit nowhere near as hard as the other champions in the busted and S tiers with this keystone. And also make sure you don't pick Orki as an AD carry. Now of course the last tier we have to cover is the support tier list, and you can see that in the busted it is Enchantress and Range Heaven with Zona, Soraka, Nami, and then Lux, just unreal picks. And if we think about those AD carries who are good, Vayne, Kog'Maw, Ashe, Lulu, Jinx. These champions love having an Enchantress next to them because they can empower them. They can peel the enemy carries off of their AD carry. Now we also have Lulu, who's high up in the S tier, but then we have Brand, Swain, and Zyra. These 3 Liandry's Anguish abusers. Think about these Enchantresses who are good. Well, these 3 champions who can burn them are such good counter picks. So if any of you guys see one of these busted champions or Lulu picked in your games, Brand, Swain, and Zyra can do some serious damage. Now in Loki Broken, we have Janna just for the same reason. She works really well with these strong AD carries. And we also have Shaco, who I'm going to recommend because in lower healers in particular, if you remember what I said for Zyra, because lots of champions are going to be close range, AP Shaco support loves these situations. You can get your boxes off, your clone is going to explode. So the laning phase, even though it might be difficult, especially against these spellcasters, once you get out of the bot lane, it's going to be an absolute clown fiesta. Now Veigar is also here, and that's with Predator. Even though this keystone has been nerfed, it's a really good pick into these ranged and mobile supports, because if you can entrap them with your cage, your team is going to clean up and get free kills. Now for the rest of the support tier list, we can see that Karma is in the A tier because she works very well with the strong AD carries, and because of this shift in the bot lane meta, we can see lots of engaging supports. So Alistar, Gragas, Leona, Nautilus, these champions, because they can get peeled off the enemy carries and die very quickly, despite hard engaging, are just less impactful. And also because of this reason, this is why Morgana is in B tier as well, because she loves playing against hard engaged supports, just like Taric. And the last champion who deserves a mention, this is Pyke, who's in C tier. Now Pyke for sure can work into hard engaged supports, but look at this tier list. We have Sona, Soraka, Lux, Nami, Brand, Swain, Zyra. These champions for Pyke are really hard to get onto and actually snowball off because of their range and because of the peel they have. You'd much rather go against one of these engages in the B tier list. So those were the 5 tier lists, guys, for 11.24, the updated version. If you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future daily uploads. And also make sure to check out the GameLeap website linked in the description and comment section on your way out for the best challenger tier courses and videos on the web. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the cheers. Oh.